Welcome, rugby fans. I'm Joe Harrington of FloRugby. With me, as always, our man in the UK, Philip Binden. We're here to talk about some rugby that happened this weekend and some rugby that's going to happen next weekend. It's all going to be streaming on FloRugby and the Flow Sports app. Philip, we have got to start in France, top 14. So, we did not make this match our match of the week because last week, because the Prem League was in Derby week. We had all those great matches last week. But we all knew that the match that would send shockwaves from rugby probably would be Toulouse and Bordeaux, because that's the rematch of the top 14 final. That's the top 14 defending champion versus the European defending champion. We thought it was going to be a good match. We did not think it was going to be 35-3 at halftime, right?
Yeah, what a blowout. I mean, Bordeaux, was it 3 wins, 3 losses now. They're just so up and down. I did not see that sort of result coming. I know Bordeaux rotated, but so did Toulouse in terms of their players, and it was such a mismatch. It was almost like their final, not the one just gone, but the one prior where they got completely blown out. And I'm a little bit worried about Bordeaux. Now, the top 14 is super competitive. I mean, from 1st to 10th, there's only 5 points on the table. So
every team has at least 2 losses.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It is so tight. It's brilliant. It's so good to see. And yeah, I mean, Montebellon and Perpignan are in a whole world of trouble, but everybody else, super tight, super tight.
Yeah, I was watching that match. It was our free match. You can watch the whole replay for free on YouTube at FloRugby. And it was just like, I was stunned. I mean, I thought Toulouse would win the match because I just didn't see them losing back to back. I certainly didn't see them losing at home. But man, to shut out Bordeaux in the first half is crazy. Dropping 50 points on them is nuts. Especially because Toulouse was coming off a loss. And it was pretty shocking to me. And I messaged you this in our Slack. We can say we're on Slack, folks. I messaged you this in our Slack. I was like, Toulouse at full strength. Who's beating them?
It's pretty frightening. I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, Leinster kind of got going this week, and they've still got loads of players to come back. I mean, La Rochelle are gone. Their heads are gone. They're completely out of it at the moment. I can't see anyone bar Leinster really disrupting them. Now, one side who might be a bit underrated in this side of things is Bath, because they obviously haven't shown it at the Champions Cup level yet. They looked really good again this week. So for me, I'm thinking a full strength Bath and a full strength Leinster are the closest you're going to get. But as we know, Toulouse are going to have one man coming back in December. And if you're going to have one man coming back, it might as well be Antoine Dupont, right?
Right. Should we be worried that Toulouse is yet to win on the road?
It's such a weird one. The top 14 really is like that. Teams love winning at home, so it's so important. They really prioritize that. And if they're going to rotate, they'll rotate on the road. I still think Toulouse will start getting better as the season goes on and start picking up some road wins as it goes on. Obviously, Bayonne lost this week too, which brings everything a bit closer. Which I don't want to jump ahead because I know you're really keen on talking about that. But yeah, the road form's a weird one. The road form's a weird one, but I do think they'll round into shape because at the moment, Ugo Mola is just rolling through his squad and playing different teams pretty much every week. So it'll be interesting to see when he starts settling on his first team and starts really going for it.
Okay, well, let's segue there because Section Palois, or Po, as we like to call them. I am just butchering French. I am so okay, but Po, they beat the team that we were really high on. I mean, we thought Bayonne was going to be great. Bayonne goes to Po. Po just beats them pretty handedly. I don't want to say slaughter them or anything, but it was a handed win. They are at the top of the table in top 14. And a little preview this week, we're going to have a column on it. And it's like, is Po ready for all the smoke? Because, of course, I compared it to the scene in The Lord of the Rings when Theoden, that army and the Riders of Rohan go in, they beat all the orcs and they're celebrating, and then that army with all the elephants comes out, and just the all the life just like goes from Baden's face when he looks at it, and you can just tell he's like screaming really, and like that's what I think Poe must be going through because they just pick up this big win, and now they've got to play Toulouse. We just said Toulouse hasn't won on the road yet, but they just beat Bordeaux 35-3. I think that's one of the best matches that we have, and wow, I think Post coming off a big win, but now they got Toulouse.
Yeah, no, I think Toulouse are primed for a nice big win on the road pretty soon. It was actually 56-13 in the end of
Yeah,
that UBB. I mean, match. It was unbelievable. It was yeah. I mean, but Poe, I it was so funny because I was obviously covering some URC and Prem while the Poe Bayonne game was going on, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to jump across and have a look at this match, and I couldn't believe it. Poe were absolutely hammering Bayonne, and we talk about players coming back. Julien Montoya is going to be joining that team, so they're only going to get better too. They've been a really steady build over the last few years, and they play such a nice brand of rugby that it's cool to see them getting results. I think that they're firmly in the running for a top six, and as you just said there, Joe, I mean, you don't get a bigger test in World Club Rugby than Toulouse, so that's going to be an interesting matchup, and you know it's a big one because they've got that sort of prime time 8 o'clock local time kickoff on Saturday, so it's going to be all on. Big island game for them.
yeah. So people that don't realize this, the top 14, they do what the NFL does. They'll adjust times to get their best games in there, and their prime time night games are usually the best. And this match was moved to prime time Saturday. Prime time in France, about 3 o'clock Eastern in the United States. I was doing a deep dive on Poe because this was a team that barely made the didn't make the top 14 playoff last year. They made the Champions Cup, but they were sixth on the table, and they are tied for basically third. There's three teams, 4 and 2, and all have 19 points, but the bonus point situation has them at the top of the table. But I think that this is a barometer game, I would say, for how I feel like they can do in the Champions Cup.
Yeah, I think it's a really good indicator as to where they are going into it, obviously. And as we said, really, it's hard. It is sometimes hard to get a full gauge this early in the season as to where teams are. But when you look at that group, I mean, so they're in Pool 4, right? So they've got Union Bordeaux Begle, they've got the Scarlets, Bristol Bears, Northampton Saints, and Vodacom Bulls. I mean, they're not going to be playing Bordeaux because they're both from the top 14. So that's the toughest team in the league, and your pool gone. Could they beat Northampton? Of course they could beat Northampton and the Bulls. And you know against Bristol and Scarlets, they definitely win those games. So in my opinion at the moment, so
Okay.
yeah, could we be
Let me
looking
tell
at
you,
Poe in the knockout?
I looked at that pool, and my first thought wasn't anything about Poe. It was, oh my, the Scarlets. They're in
Oh,
some. Oh,
they
that's
are
that's
in
brutal.
some strife. Yeah, no, they they are not in a good place at the moment. It sounds terrible to. I don't mean to laugh. I mean it's horrible. I think the Scarlets are one of these great regions, and Welsh rugby's got a lot of work to do. There's obviously all this debate about whether they'll keep the four regions or drop it down to two at worst. So there's a lot going on there underneath the surface. But let's make one thing clear: that Scarlets team are underperforming at the moment. They have way more talent than they're showing through these opening rounds. Now I know that round two was missed, and there was quite in the URC because of Storm Amy, and there was a lot of sort of back and forth about maybe they should have gone over to Connacht a bit earlier, but they didn't. But that thumping they took at the hands of the Stormers this week was something else. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second because the Stormers are now topping the table there in the URC. But put a bow on it. Uh, do you think Toulouse has got this match, or do you think Poe's going to come out?
It's like you said, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because it is in Poe. So I'm gonna. Why not? Let's go with it. I think Poe can do it at home. Yeah, I don't see why not. Toulouse, it depends what team they send down there and whether they keep tinkering with their lineup. Because I think the team that played against UBB this week could probably do a number on Poe. Um, And obviously top of the tables on the line. But I'm going to go with Poe on this one. And just while we're on the topic of the Champions Cup, they have their two hardest games at home. They've got the Saints and Bulls at home. Geez, could they go 3-1 or 4-0 in their pool and be top? That'd be cool to see some new blood in that position, right?
And as we know, like, you get the Bulls at home and it's in Europe, like that's a huge advantage because we don't know if the Bulls will send their A team to Europe for that match, right?
Bang on, bang on. I mean, to date they haven't, right? I know Jake White has said, who was their former coach, tried to say they were sending the stronger team, but they had to manage their resources because the URC is the most important thing for them at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how Johan Ackerman, the new Bulls coach, approaches it. Now, again, this Bulls team this season are a lot stronger, in my opinion, in terms of squad depth. Albeit, obviously, they had a tough go of it this week, but they have a lot of depth with Andre Pollard there, Johan Hussen to come back. They've got Cameron Hanekom to come back. There's lots of Springbok talent there. So if the Bulls get off and they're doing quite well in that, and they've got that's the round 4 matchup. It all depends how the Bulls have done in the 3 rounds prior to that, in my opinion.
You mentioned him earlier. When do you think Poe will get the Argentina captain Julio Montoya back?
I would I wouldn't be surprised if he's back this week. I wouldn't be surprised because I was quite it took me off guard a little bit that we had all of the Springboks were back in the URC teams and things like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out on that side of things.
I sent you a message when I saw that lineup that the Stormers were thrown out there, and I was like, "Oh man, they're in some trouble."
Oh yeah, that
Wow.
was going to be a tough one, wasn't it? It was yeah, not ideal, but that Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu and Damien Willemse combination is going to be. It's not just going to be the Scarlets falling foul to that combination this season. Yeah, I know Sasha got a bit of hate online this week for his off the ball antics, but I love seeing that bit of fire in a fly half. It's quite cool when they mix it up with the forwards. He had Tame Plumtree on the ground, a big back row. So yeah, interesting times.
All right, so in the Gallagher Prim Rugby, we had Derby Week this past week. What were your takeaways from pretty early Derby Week for them in England?
Yeah, starting with my sort of shock of the week, Quinn's turning over Saris. That's a big result for Quinn's. That's a really, really important win for them. And it was also not really like a typical Quinn's sort of win. It was a tight match and they closed it out. They've been there or thereabouts. I think they were really unfortunate in the opening 2 rounds. They took that huge lead against Bath, but couldn't physically live with Bath for a full 80 minutes. Then they had a big lead away to Leicester, same sort of thing. They let it slip. So getting on the board with that win against Saris was huge for them. And I think Quins will keep getting better as the season goes on, just in terms of talent that they're bringing back. That was a big one for me. But the biggest takeaway is I just don't see who beats Bath at the moment. They're just so dominant, and it's not just their physical forwards. It's across the board. They've got the back line to live with it. Finn Russell was back, looked really good. Santi Carreras was on the bench. The big thing for them is when Finn Russell goes to the Six Nations, they've now got Carreras to slot in at 10 if he stays fit and healthy. Finn Russell's in my opinion probably the best fly half in the world at the moment. But Carreras on form is not far off it either. So that was a big one. Sale annihilating Newcastle. It's a shame to see Newcastle kind of fading this early. Obviously, they got rid of their coach Steve Diamond, which came as a real shock after, I believe it was round 2 or round 1. I need to double check again. So that was a real shock. Yeah. And then I think probably the best result, other than Quinn's was a really good result, was Bristol with all their injuries holding off Exeter, because that Exeter team's really a coming force again. So really interesting across the board. I think the most impressive was obviously Bath, if you're just going on the bones of it, but Quins and Bristol were exceptional too. Northampton and Leicester was awesome. Loved a bit of argy-bargy.
Marcus Smith was back in full force for the Quins, and he played really well. I think he had one of the tries was waved off, but he had that really marvelous try. I'd say go look at go watch that replay of that match. He had some really good plays there. Marcus Smith gives you a shot, right? I mean, he's one of the best players in England.
Yeah, he does, and he's so like the Quins are built around Marcus Smith, and in a way that England aren't necessarily. So everything filters through Marcus, and that's when he plays his best, which is interesting because you would think if England were to commit to him, could they be a lot more expansive? Possibly. Personally, I think Finn Smith at Northampton is going to suit England at Test Rugby more, but Marcus for Quins in the Prem or the Champions Cup is must see TV. The guys
It's also,
expect.
it's also really interesting because if you just watched England rugby, and I've watched more England rugby than I had Gallagher Prem before this year, you're kind of saying, okay, is Marcus Smith that guy? Is he really good? And then the more you watch him in the Prem, like that game, you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay, he's really good. He's just in a completely different role when he's with England.
Yeah, it's a really weird one. I don't think this is just my opinion. I don't think Steve Borthwick did enough to build around him because when you go back to that tour of New Zealand, not this July gone, but the July prior, England came very close to overturning the All Blacks, and Marcus Smith was the key reason for that. There was obviously ups and downs in the Six Nations and things like that, and he lost his starting role to Finn Smith, who again is a phenomenal player in his own right and kind of feels more like a Steve Borthwick player. So, but when you think about one-on-one talent, Marcus Smith is exceptional in terms of what he can do. It's just you really do have to build a team around him. He's not a facilitator; he's a playmaker, and playmakers need players who run off him. That's where the loss of Andre Esterhazen for me was a big thing for Quins because big physical centre who can direct and straighten the line for Quins is really important. But they seem to be unearthing plenty of young talent there, and I think they're coming force again. So you can never count Quins out. They're the kind of team that can just rip off 6-7 wins in a row, and people will go, well, where did that come from? And suddenly they're near the top of the table. So
So
it'll be an interesting track.
you mentioned Bath. They just look like the most dominant team in Gallagher Prem right now, and they're the defending Challenge Cup champions. We were there. You were there. You spoke to Finn after that match. That was a good match. They beat Toulon. I think it was Toulon.
Leon, yeah, yeah,
Leon. Sorry.
yeah,
Um,
close.
See, this is when you do it off the top of your head. You think these follow ups.
There we go.
Okay, so now looking at they're in pool two of the Champions Cup,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think it's ever too early to look at this, but like that Munster Bath match in round one, we're gonna have a piece this week on FloRugby. You can read all about it. We're kicking it off with the three best matches in round one. Like that's shaping up to be the match in round one.
That'll decide the top of that pool, I think, in my opinion. And it's a big benefit for Bath having that at home because Thomond Park is a hard place to go. Northampton have won at Thomond Park recently, but it's very rare that Munster of any iteration lose at home. So for me, that's a real opportunity for Bath to lay down a marker and go, we are the top dogs in this pool for a reason, and take that out because for them, they then go away to Toulon the next week, which is a really tough match. That is a very difficult place to go again. So for Bath, it's crucial that they win against Munster in round one because if they lose at home and then they lose away to Toulon, then they're in a lot of trouble, right? Because they've still got to go to Castres, which is also a very awkward place to go. So both French matches being away is a real challenge for them.
Well, we talked about in pool four how tough it is for Poe and the Scarlets. In pool two, it's extremely tough for Edinburgh and Gloucester because they're in with Castres, Munster, Toulon, and Bath. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty clear cut top four in that for me. But if Bath is going to be this good, there's no reason why they can't be in the final.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. The challenge for Bath will be, it's so important that they get top spot because what you don't want to do is you don't want to run into a buzzsaw like Toulouse or Leinster on the road in the semi-final. Because if you have to go, listen, what Northampton did in Dublin was incredible. It was, for me, that was the rugby performance of any team last season. That was the best performance. But lightning doesn't strike twice. Leinster are not going to be caught on the hop twice at home if that won't happen again. So really, you want to get as many points as you can in the pool and have a home run all the way to the final. That's got to be the big goal for Bath. Um, I think for me, they're my odds-on bet in that pool. And as a Munster fan and a Munster man, that's hard to say. But I think in my opinion, those will be the top two sides in the pool just because of the way the fixtures fall, right? Like Munster have to go away to Toulon, but they won in Toulon pretty comfortably last time they were down there. And I would back them to do so again, just because that's sort of what they do. But, at the moment, it's a hard one, right? You could look at it and probably go, are Bath and Toulon the two favourites for that group? They are. But then, Munster have who they got. They got Cast and Gloucester at home, so you'd expect them to win those. It's going to be a tight pool for sure, but I think Bath are the top team in that.
All right, moving on to the URC. Obviously the URC is in a league now where they're getting their internationals back for the next couple of weeks, and then of course the URC goes on a bit of a hiatus for about a month until late November. But for the rest of October, we should start seeing a lot of the international players. We've seen the Springboks come in and just give us some really good teams. Sharks not yet. I was waiting for the Sharks lineup to drop. Didn't see all the guys there yet. But what struck me is we're getting these internationals back, and we are now. What is it that we just finished round 3? We're in round 4, and we have both Italian teams. See, I did the Texas pronunciation of Italian. We have both Italian teams right there in the top 8. If it ended right now, take the screenshot if you're a Zebre fan. So my take is this something that we can expect Benetton to be there at the end, or is this kind of roster gymnastics is putting them up there?
No, I think Benetton will be a top 8 team. I have very little doubt. You just look at what they've done over the past 2 weeks to Glasgow, and then just in this past week, what they did to the Lions. I was looking at the stats. Ignacio Mendy went for 201 meters made. I think Louis Lina went for about 145, but he scored 4 tries. I mean, it's mental to think that he's going to be playing for Italy and his brother Tom's going to be starting for the Wallabies. I hope they do clash at some point because that's pretty cool. I actually think Benetton have the potential to be a top 4 team if they can get that consistency. Realistically, I think they'll be probably 5th or 6th is where I'll see them falling. Zebre, though, surprise package of the opening few rounds. That loss away to Ospreys was disappointing, but Ospreys showed plenty in South Africa that they are a good team again this year. And for me, they're the pick of the Welsh teams at the moment. Them and Cardiff. Cardiff have been very good too, to be fair, through the opening 3 rounds. But yeah, I think Benetton for sure should be top 8. Zebre, if Zebre get a top 8 spot, that will be the biggest turnaround in rugby. But I think realistically, they'll be between 9 and 12 this season, which is still a good jump.
We talk about Leinster a lot, and we talk about the Stormers and the Sharks, all the international players that they have. What we sometimes forget is like Benetton is mostly made up of Italian national players. I mean, they've got a lot of the Italian teams there, so they. I don't think it's 90%, but it could be. I mean, I'd have to look at the roster, but that just tells me that they have a lot of really good players on that team. So they should be top of 8, or at least challenging top of 8 every year.
Yeah, and again, we kind of circle back to how we were saying players coming back. Benetton have Thomas Albornoz to come back at fly half. I mean, that guy was on fire for Los Pumas, obviously before getting injured. So you've got a really good 10 coming back. You've got Jacob Umanga, who's playing really well at 10 already there. Plenty of depth across the positions. Like you said, they've got the bulk of the Italian team. At the back row is the whole Italian back row, pretty much. You've got Michele Lamaro, you've got the Canonu brothers, Seb Negri. They've got some really great players. Speaking on Italian players, just while it's in my head, Northampton Saints 19-year-old teenage sensation, Eduardo Torrado is going to be a star for Italy. Keep an eye on him. 3 games so far in the Prem, and he scored 3 tries, so he scored a try every match. Guy's going to be really good. And you think about Ange Capuozzo at Toulouse, Tomas Menoncello at Benetton for me is probably the best centre in the world at the moment. So Benetton and Italy are coming forth in my opinion.
And let's remember, like 2 years ago, Benetton was really good, and then the Force. It was last year is when they were just really disappointing, and we were like, "What is going on there?" They were so good the year before, and they didn't even make the Champions Cup this past year. So looks like they're going to be in position to do that again, though this year.
Yeah. So yeah, again, like you said, they were so good. They were so disappointing in the URC, but obviously they beat La Rochelle in the Champions Cup. So not being in the Champions Cup this season is such a disappointment for them. But I agree with you, Joe. I think they'll be back again next season in the Champions Cup because they're just going to be. I can't see when I look through the teams how they don't make the top eight, just purely on the quality. They've had a coaching change, and I really rate their former coach Marco Bortolami, who's now head coach at Sale, which is a big, obviously, job change. But things apparently just got a bit stale there. Not that Marco wasn't a great coach. Sometimes you need a new voice, and they look reinvigorated. They're playing attacking rugby. And hopefully they keep that going. I think they're going to be a really tough out for everyone so far for the rest of the season. Yeah, my money would be on Benetton being in the top eight and actually pushing towards that top four, but probably fifth or sixth. I think they'll finish.
New team at the top of the table in the URC. They're the team we've already talked about. The Stormers, we know they're going to be good, and then they release that they just unleash that lineup with the Springboks there. They go to Italy this week. They play Parma, and of course, we have the big match in Dublin. But what are your takes on the Stormers, and how long do you think they'll be at the top of this table?
Yeah, I think the Stormers are a real challenger for first place overall on the table. When you look at it, because if you take into account, right, Munster, Leinster, we'll get on that in a little bit. That's going to be a ding dong battle in Croke Park, right? So say Munster lose that and the Stormers win away, they suddenly get a bit of a jump on the only other team that's joint with them on points. So that makes a big difference, right, as things go on that side of things. If Leinster lose again, which is also possible, they stay on, say, 6 or 7 points. The Stormers are miles ahead of them. And if you think about it, the Stormers getting this tour out of the way nice and early is big for them, because they then go back to, once they finish their Italian portion here against Zebre and Benetton, they go back to South Africa, right? From memory? Oh, no, I'm wrong on that. Sorry, they come back up to play Munster, but then they're at home for a nice stretch throughout up to Christmas and that festive period. And you'd expect them to just start racking up points down in South Africa. So for me, actually, I think the Stormers at the moment, Leinster are likely to be the top team on the table, but I would say Stormers have a very good chance of being first in the regular season because they've got so much talent to come back again. I know they sprinkled in the Springboks, but you think about Kubis, Reinach, and players like that coming back, they're only going to get better again. So as far as the South African teams go, for me, the Stormers are the best team this season.
Yeah, we've not announced this officially, but it does look very good. Like we're going to have the Stormer Munsters match is going to be our next Athletes Lounge match in November. That'll be right before Champions Cup, so that's a big match before Champions Cup there. And I'm with you. I think the Stormers are going to be at the top of this table for a while here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to ask this every week, Philip. All right, let's say you didn't work for FloRugby. You're just watching rugby yourself. You look at what we have to offer here at FloRugby. What's the one match that you're paying your hard-earned money to subscribe to and watch this weekend?
I don't even have to think about it. Leinster Munster this week for me, Joe. That is, it's one of the biggest rivalries in professional rugby. Two provinces that don't like each other. The players come together for Ireland, but they don't like each other. Culturally very different. You've got the big city guys of Dublin. I know there's players from outside of Dublin in the Leinster squad, in particular Ty Furlong and guys like that. But really, it's the country lads against the big city boys. So it's going to be a hell of a battle at Croke Park. I'm looking forward to going to it. At one stage, it was the highest attended club match of all time when these two met. And it was the changing of the guard after Munster had won 2 Champions Cups in 06 and 08. Leinster beat them in 09, went on to win the title and start their own dynasty. Yes, this is a big battle. There's also a lot of cool subplots. Obviously, the Ireland team is being named this Wednesday for the November series. Jack Crowley and Sam Prendergast are both going to be in that squad. You bet my house on it. But who's going to be the first choice fly half? For me, and I'm not just saying this with a Munster bias, Jack Crowley has to be on form. But Andy Farrell obviously really rates Sam Prendergast. So this is a really interesting subplot to follow in that side of things. Below that, Michael Milne was phenomenal, the loose head prop for Munster this week, who joined from Leinster last season. Could he be the backup to Andrew Porter this November, or will it be Jack Boyle or Paddy McCarthy? So lots of cool little battles to track there. I don't know if Tyg Byrne is back, but I would assume he will be, because he's had that standout period since the Lions. So him against the likes of Joe McCarthy, James Ryan will be really interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good storylines. One of them just being the Clayton McMillan. This is his first one against Leinster, and what a way to just tell Munster fans, yeah, I'm a good coach. Let's beat Leinster. What do you see from him? What do you think he's going to counter with that really good Leinster team?
Yeah, so far through 3 rounds, he's used 35 players, which is great. Get a lot of rotation through the squad. They rested Crowley this week because obviously they can only play so many matches, and they were targeting Leinster. Craig Casey needs to come back too. It's hard to decide exactly what the identity of this Munster team is, but in no universe should they have beaten Edinburgh this week just gone by, but they did, which was massive. I mean, Edinburgh got 4 yellow cards with just a lack of discipline, but Munster have over the past few seasons have driven people like me crazy with their lack of discipline when it mattered, and they really knuckled down. I think what you're getting from Clayton McMillan is discipline. One, not overplaying your hand, but then taking opportunities when they do come. So, prime example was Munster's first try this week, just gone by from Andrew Smith. Quick line out, Calvin Nash kicks it ahead. Smith out races the likes of Darcy Graham. Actually, to be fair to Darcy Graham, he probably won but missed the ball. So they take opportunities when it's on. We haven't seen the strongest Munster team yet, but we also haven't seen the strongest Leinster team yet this season. So look, in reality, you've got to be realistic here that on paper Leinster have a far stronger team than Munster, but Munster fit and firing a full 23 on 23. They're not a million miles off it, so it'll be interesting. I personally think Clayton McMillan will put his stamp on this team this year. I think I'd be pretty confident Munster will be in the top four of the URC and they'll push in the Champions Cup for sort of quarters, semi-finals, which would be a great result for them. And then he builds from there. It's hard coming in when you're taking on a whole coaching staff and a whole squad. But the biggest thing he did do is bring his own strength and conditioning team. And you can see it in this Munster team. They look very fit. And they just outlasted Edinburgh this week, which was crucial. So that was sort of back-to-back tight matches, Cardiff and Edinburgh, that they edged. So I think there's kind of a no nonsense approach, but also taking your opportunities when they're there would be my assessment of Clayton McMillan so far.
So we talked about the 80,000 plus fans expect to be there in Croke Park. My question to you is, what other derby do you think could get 80,000 fans in the stadium? Because I'm guessing it's probably North South Derby in South Africa, but I mean, that is a lot of people for a rugby match.
Yeah, I think in 2025 you could get obviously the Prem final, whoever's in that. But as far as a rivalry goes, probably Stormers Bulls, but a big game. I'm not sure they would turn it. I don't think they would get that number for a regular season game. I think if it was a quarterfinal, semi-final, final, they will. I just don't see the South Africans at the moment engaging quite. Not that they don't engage, but they wouldn't do it. It's the only rivalry I can think of right now that would get that number. I mean, maybe some of the top 14 ones I'm underrating because they all play in smaller but incredible stadiums. But yeah, just for a regular season game, it's hard to see anyone else getting that number. I mean, this is just that's the big benefit, and sometimes it's counted as a bit of a negative that Ireland only have 4 teams, but we were very fortunate to have 4 provinces that are geographical provinces that made it very easy in the professional era to go, well, these are our 4 teams. That's the challenge that Wales have at the moment is they had to create these regions and brought historical clubs that didn't like each other together to try and make these regions, and it's been very hard to get buy-in. You can see it with the Munster-Leinster match. This is a sellout because Munster fans hate Leinster fans and Leinster fans hate Munster fans. And then we all love Ireland, but I think the week after, Munster have got Connacht. That'll also be a really big game at Thomond Park. So these sort of things happen, but for me, it's the biggest rivalry in club or provincial rugby.
Off the top of my head, I would say Leinster Munster, North South Derby. That's Bulls and Stormers. The Blues and Crusaders down in Super Rugby. Wartals Reds in Super Rugby. Obviously Leicester Saints and Prem. Top 14 is always difficult because they all seem like they're all rivals there because of these crowds. I'm gonna say Toulouse's biggest rivalry is gonna be whichever club is the second best club in the league. Because that's just how good they are. So like right now, Toulouse and Bordeaux is a big rivalry, but like, is it always a big rivalry? Probably not. But
Yeah.
Toulon probably would have some case there with that. But I would say for me, without picking some of the matches we've already talked about, I'll tell you what, I really am looking at for Prim. If I was going to watch one Prim match, it would be Leicester Tigers versus Bath Rugby. We talked about how good Bath is. Uh, Leicester Tigers, obviously a storied club there. I think that that is a tough match for Bath. If they were going to drop one, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a challenging one. Leicester have obviously just started their sort of new era under Jeff Parling, who's a really good coach. I really rate him. You know, he's worked under Joe Schmidt with the Wallabies of late, so they're kind of finding their identity. And like you said, if Bath are gonna drop one, it's at sort of Mattioli, Welford Road, that's the place I think they would drop that either there or away to Saracens. Against everyone else, it's really hard to see anyone overturning them at the moment. So that's 100% the biggest match this week in the Prem. Completely agree with you. I'm still backing Bath to do it because of what they've shown me so far this season. But that's the one to go for this week.
Yeah, two other great matches there that off our top of our head, if we were going to give you five matches, uh, Edinburgh versus Benetton. Obviously, we talked about
Mm-hmm.
Benetton right now. Edinburgh really pushed Munster. They had all those cards, though, that really flipped the match. And we've also talked about Exeter, too, and they play the Harlequins. I think that's a really good match, too, this week.
Yeah, completely agree. They're all great matches, and the top 14. If you're looking for them, there's always great matches. But like we said, that Pau Toulouse game is going to, just to reiterate, that's going to be huge. Toulon Racing 92, really good game. Bayonne, Clermont, they're good matches. I mean, there's so much good rugby on FloRugby this week to watch. I mean, I'm just going to be glued to the screen as we always are, Joe. I mean, I've got those that Croke Park match, so I'm going to be catching up quite a bit on Saturday afterwards and on Sunday.
Yeah, stay tuned to the Flow Rugby social accounts, and because Philip is going to be at Croke Park, he's got a busy week. He's going to be in London this week for Capture Day for the Investec Champions Cup, which starts in December. So he's traveling all over the place for us and for you, rugby fans in the United States.
Joe,
All
can't
right.
wait.
Well, there we go. All right. Don't miss all the rugby action on Flow Rugby or the Flow Sports app. I'm Joe. Enjoy the rugby this week, fellas.
Thanks, Joe. It was great to catch up with you.